Welcome back, everyone. Back to TYT's all day, in fact, potentially all week election day coverage for 2020. And in fact, in honor of 2020, I think we're going to be going for 2,020 hours of coverage until this election is called. It's a short prediction. I mean, it's a short prediction coming for what I think may be a very long election night and a very long election week. So in order to help me out with some of this, first of all, I'm Jayar Jackson, as you guys may know. Ben Dixon is back with us, joining us. He has not left his perch here. Where are you? What state are you in there, Ben? You're the only one that's not here.
Georgia.
Atlanta, Georgia. Oh, this is one of the states we're looking at very closely, so I'm glad you're here with us. We also got Francesca Fiorentini, of course, back on. This is like the 3 o'clock hour when you guys were with John, am I right? Except you replaced then me.
I don't know. Like I said, I get a little cattle prod whenever I'm on, and I just wake up. I have like one of those little like bunny water drips, in the corner, and that's about it.
Except we know there's not water in there, first of all. And I like your victory jacket tonight. It's like Usain Bolt with the gold shoes. Speaking of Usain Bolt and sports, we have the return of Rick Strom with TYT Sports. It's a little miniature homecoming here. Rick and I did sports for years together. We're gonna see exactly where that political acumen still lands. Yeah, so how you doing there, Rick? How's everybody doing?
Whatever.
Yeah, I mean it's anytime the question gets asked, is if you have a definite feeling and know-how of what's going on today, I might not trust you because we're really not sure what's going down. But we did want to recap. We have been doing this TYT election pool. Many of us hosts did fill it out. And I think potentially, Francesca, embarrassingly filled it out. I wasn't supposed to bring it back up, but I was going to. We need to.
Yes. Yeah, no, I did it wrong, but I set an example for everyone else, and that was what I was used for, because I am TYT's guinea pig. Continue.
But you know what?
Oh, so you're basically like Ben Mankiewicz placing sports bets.
I understand what that means, I think.
So we need to update, first of all, Ricky's, his predictions for tonight. I mean, this goes for those of you who haven't seen, so there's a TYT electional poll where you get to choose, you try to predict where the race will go tonight as far as the electoral votes, as far as the vote margin, who you think would have won that. Some swing states, we got like 7 to 10, 12 swing states that are listed here. Some key races where the House seats will be, and also how many net Senate or House seats you think may come forward. And also the big question I think everyone is also going to be asking, if Trump does lose tonight, will he concede? All those will be figured out. Hey, Rick, you want to go through some of yours so we can plaster your picks up there for us?
Oh, you want to go through my picks? Is that what you're saying?
I would love to go through these picks.
No, I don't want to go through any of my picks because I didn't make any.
Oh, you didn't? Oh my goodness.
I have this theory of like I don't bet on my own team. I don't bet, period. But as like someone who has worked in media, I'm not gonna like bet on the Bears to beat the Packers. First off, because they went from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers. Secondly, because I just think it's a terrible way to view something. So I dutifully did not partake.
No.
Back to you, Jayar.
No, it's good. Actually, because this is the thing. Everything that you just went through there is exactly the approach that I take when it comes to sports, number one. Number two, I don't like losing money on something that I don't get back in return. So gambling is also a number two thing that I don't do. Not that this is one of those things. But, I mean, I thought we were gonna go ahead and embarrass ourselves with what we could predict. So let's throw mine up there. How about we go through that before we get to some of these some of these stories. So I threw numbers into an electoral college generator because again, I was like, well, how does this pan out? I'm not 538. I'm not the Washington Post. I'm not Rasmussen. I don't know. I'm gonna throw out some polls that I don't really pay attention to anyway because I don't need to. Just go out there and vote is what I've been saying for months now. But let's look into what I have here. As you can see, I've already listed mine as I'm not that very good at this. So before you guys get to laughing, just understand, I know. So I got Biden at 290 tonight, Trump 161. If that doesn't make sense, tell that to the generator that I went through to get these numbers. And the popular vote by margin, 4 points, I believe, for Joe Biden potentially to win. Not even necessarily tonight, but to win before this thing is all over. I think one of the things that I think everyone else, I wish I could compare, but down at the bottom left, if Trump loses, will he concede? I do think he will.
This is a very big one, Jayar. I think that's a huge bet. And I definitely said no on that one. That's the one I did understand and voted no on. But tell me why.
Well, this is the thing. Since we're on this comparison and the analogy on sports betting, the only way you make money is to risk a little bit. You can't just always go ahead and pick the favorite. You got to pick the underdog in some kind of way, but you slap it with a parlay of a bunch of other ones that you know may win. Then slap a big underdog in there and you're gonna get paid. I mean, I know that much about it. I did go to college with several degenerate gamblers, so I learned a couple things. So I mean,
I understand where you're coming from, but you're also talking about like the ultimate con man, grifting POS who will never say that he did anything wrong. So I'm just curious, what exactly is the window here? Like, do you have until 5 a.m. or do you have like 5 years?
No, I think
eventually he'll.
I'm going into the
right. Like he's not gonna concede. That would mean him calling himself a sucker.
Well, this is the thing. I think, and Ben, I promise I'm gonna let you get in. I promise to let you finish, Doug. Because I really want to know what you, because I'm, sadly, I mean, no disrespect to Rick, but I'm actually curious as to what you think of my
predictions. By the way, this is gonna be totally disrespectful. But yeah, go for it.
No, I'm mostly curious what Ben thinks of my picks because I think he's probably done the best job of this if he decided to fill one out as well. But no, the thought is at least it'll take through the week, potentially. Like, of course, he may come out here at 7 o'clock tonight and go, I won, no more counting. But then at the end of it all, if it comes to the conclusion, the obvious conclusion that he's lost, I mean, really, what is he gonna do? Really, what is he gonna do? Cross his arms, and sit in the Oval Office?
Yeah, I mean, if you really think about like, is there any real mechanism to put him out? And then you add on top of that the fact that Donald Trump is a malignant man-child and the quintessential baby in chief. I think we will be faced with Donald Trump just crossing his arms and sitting back and saying, I'm not leaving. That's especially if he has powerful people helping him out with that in the different states, in those swing states. If he has the state legislatures or if he has the Supreme Court, the state level Supreme Court, we already know he has the federal Supreme Court behind him. I think that'd give him an excuse to refuse to concede. With one exception, Jayar, that's if, that's notwithstanding the fact that Joe Biden could blow him out. If it is a clear blowout, like laughably such to the extent that Fox News calls it a blowout, then I think that might be the only way we could see him concede tonight.
Well, I mean, I think as we also saw in 16, he was setting up for that, blaming anyone else potentially if that did go down in that direction. He's basically like, it's a setup, it's a fraud, Hillary Clinton is cheating. We've heard this before and we're hearing it again in this time. So even if, say, the Fox Newses of the world are calling it what it could be, he's already, I think it was even this morning, if not yesterday, told Fox and Friends, well, Fox is not like what it used to be. So he's preparing for that potential scenario. What do you think, Francesca?
He's also gonna be like, well, if he loses, if it's a blowout, he'll be like, well, I didn't want it anyway. Ew, the White House is gross. There's tons of COVID running around and someone soiled the chair in the Oval Office. Not naming names, it's probably me. Anyway, Ivanka didn't change my diaper. The point is, he'll be like, it's very much like, I didn't want it anyway. Oh, being president is so 2016. The real new thing is having my own network or whatever is going to go on and do, or having his own island where he'll go once he fakes his death out of shame.
True.
Because that's sort of what I'm also betting on. There wasn't a square for that in the election pool, but will Trump fake his death and go to the island that Jeffrey Epstein is on? A different island, by the way. Yes.
Yeah, we're gonna have to expand the picks, the pool there to make sure we have some more things going. But okay, all this sports talk, all this pseudo sports talk has got me a little bit excited. Ricky, you're here, and I've been following stuff like this because I'm such a big sports fan. I assume the rest of you all at some level are. But today is one Colin Kaepernick's birthday. It's November 3rd. Not only election day, but it's Colin Kaepernick's birthday. The man that has been blacklisted from the NFL after all these years, and even though the NFL seemingly came around. What's been going on with this guy there, Rick? What's the word?
Well, aside from it being his birthday, which is so telling of it being election day as well, which is just quite a conundrum of feelings. However, it's not necessarily what's gone on, but what I wanted to do is just open up the dialogue of he started kneeling in 2016, and this is what not only opened our eyes to what he was saying, but also this mixing of sports and politics that have always been. It didn't just necessarily come in 2016 when he started saying, hey, police are killing a lot of black people in this country. We should do something about it. Or, hey, racism is kind of bad. Maybe we should address this. It was before him. It was Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf when he was kicked out of the NBA. Right. It was Jackie Robinson integrating. It was something called literally the Negro Leagues because they wouldn't allow black players who were far better than any majority of the white players that played in Major League Baseball to even stand a chance to play professionally. So it's this all-encompassing feeling of being like, oh, he's totally validated, but he should have been validated a really long time ago. It should not have taken until 2016 for a guy who Ron Jaworski said was the next great quarterback at the NFL and was arguably one pass interference away with Michael Crabtree in the back corner of the end zone from winning the Super Bowl. It shouldn't have taken this long.
The Harbowl, as many people called it, that he took part in. Yeah. Any thoughts on Colin Kaepernick, you guys?
Yeah, what I wanted to do is present some sort of evidence of how, like, it's not just Cap, it's not just Trump. Like, it is they want the separation of sports and politics, where Brett Favre asks a racist, like, hey, Trump, how do you get racism out of society? Like, it's this smorgasbord of BS from all of these figures, but mainly because politics and sports have mixed, because you have politicians, and we could show these graphics with the NBA. In the NBA, you view this as the most progressive league, right? Like we think it's the progressive league. Then again, they just allowed LeBron James to take a knee because of what happened this past year. Because of George Floyd, because of Jacob Blake, because of Ahmaud Arbery, because of many, many others that unfortunately died through our own falsehoods of what we believe America is and how it's equal for everybody. The problem with all of this is, in the NBA, you have owners like the DeVos family who own the Orlando Magic. You know what they did 2 weeks after George Floyd died? They gave to a PAC called America First Action. You guys probably know what it is on the panel. Maybe some watching don't. Basically, Juan Pablo Andrade, who's one of the advisors to America First Action, basically said, and I quote, "The thing the Nazis didn't get right is they didn't keep blanking going." So these are the sort of groups that they're donating to. Dan Gilbert hosted the RNC in 2016. To my recollection, the white supremacists came to power in 2016. James Dolan also gets tax breaks with the New York Knicks. He swings heavily Republican, the Holt family, which is surprising because they employ Greg Popovich. They also donate heavily with the San Antonio Spurs to Republican causes. Mickey Arison of the Miami Heat does the same. Joshua Harris interviewed in the Trump White House with his buddy Jared Kushner, who he got millions and millions of dollars from. So basically, to open it up, this mixing of sports and politics is a facade. Them wanting it to not be mixed is a facade. It doesn't exist. It can't exist until, I don't know, maybe they stop using our taxpayer money to pay for their stadiums.
Well, the invisible walls. The invisible walls.
I mean, I just want to say that that's a beautiful summary, and what a perfect ending or near ending to 2020 than for it to be Colin Kaepernick's birthday today on election day. And this is somebody who put everything on the line and was outcast by everybody. And that was a short 4 years ago. And it just shows you how backwards Trump brought us, while actually the population has been moving forward. While actually Kaepernick, 3.5 years later, the NFL is apologizing for it, right? The NFL is like, oh, we shouldn't have done that. That's a short amount of time to have that big of an impact. And of course, Kaepernick's building off of the movements, the BLM movements that were already there. But I just want to say, like, we are not as behind as we think we are. I think we're just going through a like white supremacist exorcism where we're trying to like, it's like the final scene in Hereditary, and we're like trying to like saw off our head. I don't know, I heard it was gross. I'm gonna watch it later on to calm myself down from watching America. But this is what we're going through. And like Kaepernick, man, look at the weather vane that he was and how the world has shifted around him to show how right he was, how at the Thanksgiving dinner table this November, people are gonna agree that it was wrong to ice him out for what he did.
Are they? Because this is what I was thinking about off of Ricky said. Yes, there's these, I think, invisible walls put up around from the ownership groups for these sports teams to commissioners to then front office and then players, where you got coaches and players who are the employees of the team. And yeah, things look a certain way, but I think the NBA has this shine on them, I think, to the casual watcher in comparison to other sports. Because look, NFL was the sport that Colin Kaepernick was blacklisted from. The NHL, we hear about how people are saying, "Oh, I'm done watching the NBA, I'm gonna go watch the NHL because there's plenty of white guys there," and they just assume that's just the way it's gonna be. So the NBA almost got its pass based off of its comparison to other sports, I think specifically football, because NBA has had its history of the way they treated black athletes, about dress codes and the reasons for those dress codes when they're coming in through the arena. And oh man, those pants are too baggy. The Allen Iverson days around the early 2000s, when all that was going down, people forget there was some disdain for David Stern, who just recently passed away. And then Adam Silver walks in with this opportunity to change the face and the look of the league. And then, you have LeBron James that's there in this new face of the league who's very open to speaking for it. When previous, again, in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, early 2000s, you had Michael Jordan was the name. And if anybody who didn't know at the time was going, if you want to watch that documentary, The Last Dance, they went into some of the things, some of the drama that Michael Jordan didn't participate in, but his name was automatically mentioned in those things just because of who he was. It's a different era of players. And again, I think it's partially due to the information age, social media, and the fact they can speak up much more in the way that they'd like to. But it doesn't mean everything is just great. And we've seen some of these graphs about how much these teams, amongst all these major sports, give to Republicans versus Democrats.
Yeah,
Ricky.
Yeah, I was going to say, in terms of the Thanksgiving dinner, I think that we're going to see. I think the fight they're going to fight a lot. One, they may not even go to Thanksgiving because COVID-19 has been spread so far.
It's canceled. We know that.
Because of Donald Trump, right? But let's say that they break the rules and they go to Thanksgiving dinner like they go to these rallies. Okay, so I think they're going to be fighting each other to the death over these issues still the same way, because I don't think anything has fundamentally changed. I think the NBA, as well as the NFL, understand corporate investments and opportunities to cash in on movements. And they see that there's a value, especially the NBA, there's a value to not trying to crush the voices of players like LeBron James, because he can obviously give them hell if he chose to. And so with the NFL, you laid it out perfectly. There's just so many owners of the NFL who buy into this exact same type of thinking, the same type of white supremacy. The entire structure of the NFL, quite frankly, is a white supremacist structure. So they're totally fine with capitalizing on it. But has anybody given Colin Kaepernick a team to play for?
Exactly.
No, right.
Exactly.
No. The Seattle Seahawks were going to give him a tryout, but it was basically in theory. It wasn't something that panned out, which was clearly wrong. Now with the NFL, my main crux is obviously they completely screwed Colin Kaepernick through a coordinated attack that went from the president to NFL owners all the way to the freaking commissioner of the league sanctioning it, colluding against this guy because they were like, yeah, this dude that's having a silent protest, that's just bad for us, which is obviously wrong, but it's also totally transparent in the way that they're thinking, which also led to them limiting discovery through a court case and them throwing money at Cap to say, whoa, there's way too much info that's gonna come out with us. There's gonna be phone records of this coordinated attack, in my opinion, and that's why they settled it. But on top of that, the one thing that gets me, and this is where a producer of ours, Brett Ehrlich, and I disagreed, was they are allowing kneeling, right? And they're allowing these decals of the names of people, black people that have been executed by police across the country. my problem is, and I think Ben hit the nail on the head previously with this sentiment, was they're allowing it, but is anything changing mainly with the owner's money? The answer is no. All they're doing is allowing this for positive PR.
Sure. What do you think? I mean, sorry, I don't mean to jump in, but I hear that and I realize it was all surface, but I do think in 3 years minds have been changed about that, about his nonviolent action that we knew the outrage over was BS. But now we're in a time of COVID and game on, because the billions can't be lost. Like, I support all sports reporters. Rick, I like you. I want you to have something to talk about. But like, really, we're game. And look, Jayar, I'm glad the Dodgers won. But then you got Justin Turner and his positive COVID test. Like, we're just kind of openly putting players who, I'm not trying to make them the victims, but they're already like, NFL owners are fine with a CTE as long as it doesn't happen to their wallets, as long as like the damage isn't in their pocketbooks.
Oh yes, they actually hid CTE studies, and then they employed a yes man who I believe was from he's a South African doctor. They put on the case for doing CTE when his main CTE study was horse racing and jockeys. So they have tried to do this over and over and over again. It wasn't even until the settlement, but even in that settlement many years ago, the caveat was, we could give you the money, but you guys can't say that the reason your brain isn't functioning is because you played in the National Football League. They will fight this tooth and nail over and over and over again. But I just want to get back to one quick thing, and then let me just open this up. Is Michael Bennett ripped Roger Goodell? Michael Bennett was a former player. He's the brother of Martellus Bennett, who used to play for the Chicago Bears, New York Giants, Dallas Cowboys. Who else did he play for? New England Patriots. So with that being said, Michael Bennett, after Roger Goodell said, we believe, when he went in front of the camera, we believe Black Lives Matter, right? Michael Bennett said, well, you should know that Black Lives Matter because your entire workforce, 76% of it is black. And we were applauding him for that, which was just surprising to me.
Yeah, something that's spoken in truth becomes a big deal. And we do have to run from this, but my last thought on that was, now, the catering that comes from the NFL is based off of what they perceive to be the fan base. And the supposed catering from the NBA is based off of the perceived fan base. Like, it's a much more diverse fan base, they believe, from the NBA, so let's cater to them, even if these owners are still giving all this tons of money to certain people who actually don't, who are looking to put people in office who won't do anything for those certain segments of the population. So in the NFL, they're thinking, we're banking this off a business decision. Again, many of these guys, their primary business, I'm gonna say all of them, their primary business was not owning a team, a professional franchise. They're looking for business things. So if the business leads them to some kind of keeping a certain amount of money or making more, they'll go with whichever way the wind blows, whichever way the fan base goes. So again, that's I see as the only potential positive outcome from this, that enough people are waking up to the way things are, and then they won't be supporting the teams in the same way that they did, unless there's something that actually has to do with the players that are seen more as just this body on the field, but as a human being who has a right to say things they want, believe things they want, and honestly sway fans to those types of to those realities of our country. That's my last thought. We're gonna run soon, but any last thoughts from you guys on any of this?
I mean, I'm just surprised that you guys still like sports after all this. You guys, you're supposed to. I mean, you're lucky you're not that into soccer or football, like the proper football. That is, talk about money and corruption and also just selling players way too early. But anyway, I never get why people still like sports even though we know they're totally corrupt.
The sports ball, can't get away from it.
And one last pitch from Rick, because LeBron is awesome.
I mean, he is awesome.
And he's doing more than just sports. Awesome. That's the thing that sticks about him. There's the initiatives for school and for voting and all these things he's trying to do that'll actually help folks that wouldn't have had the opportunity to get where they could potentially get, and hopefully that spreads. So let's take a quick break. We'll be back to discuss more on the actual races and the things that are going on today, the campaigns, what we may be seeing coming down the pike as we get closer and closer to the main show at 6 p.m. Eastern, and then of course the special coverage of tonight with everything election related. we shall return. Hopefully we can talk Rick into staying, but he probably won't because he's tired of us. We'll see you guys in a minute. Well, hello. We're back for more of our 2020 hours worth of coverage for the election. We did talk Ricky into hanging around for a bit longer. So really fast, because I did have some thoughts, because there was a story that broke today that I'm not sure if you guys had mentioned yet, but it does entail whether or not the winning and losing potential for Trump in this election. But really fast, because there was an image that popped up of rugby being played in New Zealand. This comes, of course, right after my Dodgers, go Blue, just won the World Series after this since 1988, this many years, and I'm sure everyone saw. But as things went down, there was sparse crowds in the stadium in Washington when they played the World Series. But at this rugby match in New Zealand, we got tens of thousands of fans there. Rick, what happened, man?
Why do you keep calling me Rich?
Because I want to call you Richard.
You were going to be a groomsman in my wedding. I've known you for like 10 years, and all of a sudden we don't talk because of coronavirus, and you're suddenly calling me Rich, which, by the way, I am not.
I feel like you've grown up. I feel like you've grown up right in front of us, man. You're doing things big. I'm like, it's been too long since we've done a show together. So it's either Richard or Rick.
I'm so big that you can't get my name accurately. It's quite alarming. No, look, man. I was when I saw this photo, I was pissed. I was mad because it shows what competent people can do and accomplish for societies when they trust science and they don't politicize science and they don't politicize mask usage, and they say, hey, this thing is real. How about we nip it in the bud for a few months just so you guys can go, live your lives as sports fans. It's sort of like that meme where it's like, this could have been us. Yeah. It's like, yeah, it could have, but we just put a Nazi in the White House. So like you expect him to be like, yo, climate change, let's get to it. So yeah, it made me really mad. But also what made me mad as just a moral person is when the Chiefs hosted the Texans opening night of the NFL season, and they allowed fans, and they're still allowing fans. But guess what? In one section, one person had coronavirus, which meant that those around him or her had to be tested, and they probably got coronavirus. Yep. So I thought it was really dumb of all these sports leagues to be like, hey, if we can make $200,000 or $500,000 for one game, we're just gonna take the money, which really shows you everything.
It's exactly.
But it's a perfect example of why actually real contact tracing, actual testing, and yeah, maybe some shutdowns, and the media has been playing this game of, doesn't shutting down hurt the economy? No, you stupid idiot, oh my God. Like, you are so willfully ignorant, not just the Republican Party, but some in the media are like, you want total lockdowns, or it doesn't Biden want a lockdown, and then Biden's like, no, I don't want a lockdown. It's like, actually stopping things for a bit allows us later on to be able to open up. I'm a stand-up comic. I've been doing Zoom shows, y'all. Do you realize how sad this is for my craft? I mean, artists and musicians, everyone's getting hammered by this, and then Jacinda Ardern comes around and just makes everything better. And why can't we have Jacinda as our president today?
Doesn't it look like, I look at that picture and I'm like, we're living in alternate universes, right? Where we in America it's spreading uncontrolled, and they still don't want to do anything about it. And at first when I heard about this photo, I was like, they have to be out of their minds. Yeah. Why are they not wearing any masks? But then I read the headline, it's because they don't have to, because they did what they had to do to prevent the spread, uncontrolled spread. So the fact that we're just that feckless in this country really just points out to me how much I need to get out of this country if Donald Trump gets reelected.
Yes.
But let me just rebuke one thing that Ben said, which was on the end. RIP to him. And also the Larry Wilmore show, which was awesome. When Mac Miller was on there, he's like, if Trump gets elected, I'm staying right the F here. I'm gonna battle you every single day. I'm gonna call out how much you suck every single day. Yeah. I'm gonna try to make positive change. So I have thought about it, because I have called Canadian friends. But then I'm like, you know what?
Not Canada.
Not this guy.
Come on, not Canada. Are you kidding me?
Well, I mean, I could still do all that from New Zealand via the internet. So I would still give Donald Trump hell. But I mean, I would like to be able to go to the grocery store without putting on a hazmat suit sometime in the near future.
Well, and honestly, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna mention, did y'all know that Wuhan, China had an outdoor EDM festival, okay? In a water park. They're just trolling us. They created a literal wet market EDM festival because they knew how racist we were talking about their wet markets, and then just trolled the whole world. Like, we got this under control. Do, you know, so let's,
right. And
it's not just New Zealand.
And honestly,
meanwhile, you have 700 people who died because they went to a Donald Trump rally. Like,
exactly.
this is
right. So this is the thing. We've got the fact that we're looking at sporting events, concerts that happen in other countries, and that's the thing that we could be wishing for, instead of wishing that 200 and what, we're up to 237K now of deaths in this country, plus deaths in this country. That's not motivating factors enough. Our motivating factors have to be, man, I've been a Dodger fan for all this time, and I didn't get a chance to be there. That's the motivation factor. But even that isn't enough. But maybe if they flash a couple pictures of other countries enjoying extracurricular activities from people who are still alive, then we have to go how many steps lower for that to be a motivating factor? But by the way, it isn't yet. But it has to be a motivating factor to make us say, you know, that could be us. And honestly, again, Francesca, when you're talking about the potential lockdowns and people being afraid to say, yeah, we need to do that because that would be good for our economy, would be good for people's jobs in the near future. We've now gone this entire year, let's keep it real, not doing that fully, doing it in spots here and there, and then those people being criticized for it. If we'd done it early, you could have the recovery later. Now that it's been this long and everyone's hurting so badly, doing it this late hurts even more because we waited so long. And now people are hurting, and on top of that, whatever pain would have been in, say, a few months worth of lockdowns is gonna be exponentially laid upon everyone's heads. So it's even harder to make.
I disagree with Jayar. Virtually nobody gets this. So I don't know what you're fetching about. Haven't you heard nobody gets this?
Yeah. And then once you've had it,
but like keep this in perspective. Like, NBA teams had to go into the Disney bubble. They had to go and be on an isolated campus. And when Ben McLemore of the Houston Rockets ordered DoorDash, he then had to isolate for another week.
Yeah.
That was the extreme nature of how sports had to operate.
Did they put him in the Peter Pan ride? Because I would have ordered DoorDash just to be put in the Peter Pan ride over and over again. I hope that that's what happened. And if it didn't, that's wrong.
I have a question for Francesca. Do you think it helped your craft a little more knowing that you weren't you weren't in front of an audience and getting like the natural clap in the room audience reaction?
Did it help my craft? Oh yeah, I'm very comfortable with silence now. So, whereas before, when my joke wouldn't land, it would make me uncomfortable. Now I'm like, crushing it, crushing it.
Speaking of, I'm glad you said crushing it, because again, if you guys have been watching it earlier, I believe Cenk does see a crushing defeat for Trump tonight. And as we already looked at some of the election polls that Ricky decided to not participate in, there is the possibility for that to happen. And Ben, you also pointed out as well, the only way a concession may happen is if it's a crushing defeat. Now, what could actually be the crushing part about this? And I'm not sure if you guys have spoken about this earlier. It doesn't matter, because I really want to know from my own ears what you guys think from Deutsche Bank. I don't know, they haven't confirmed, they haven't had much confirmation or comments on this. But there is a story out of Business Insider that's talking about how the German lender, Deutsche Bank, everyone who's been looking into, holds hundreds of millions of dollars of money over Donald Trump's head in loans on his properties and whatever else he's gotten out of loans from them. And it seems to be declaring that if he does lose, they're ready to cash in and stick out the hand and say, where's my money, like they're Sally Mae. Oh, yeah. So that's also another motivating factor tonight for Trump to really want to make sure he's not leaving. Because honestly, before you guys jump in, from my point of view, if you're gonna go and they're waiting to see if he loses, to then ask for your money that he's owed you for I don't know how long, or even if it's been up yet, why not now? It says a lot about our political system that if he's in position of power where he is as president, let's not rattle any cages right now because he might be able to respond and hurt us.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think it's directly connected to their fear of him tweeting about them, and then being the president of the United States tweeting about them. But Donald Trump has a long list of debts that he's going to have to answer for as soon as he's out of power. He has a lot of potential indictments that will fall. He has all the incentive in the world to not budge, not to mention his ego. So all those things combined, I mean, Joe Biden is going to have to run up like a 1984 kind of 1980 rather run up against. I know I was right the first time, 84 with Mondale. Yeah, that's the kind of win Joe Biden is going to have to get tonight in order to make sure Donald Trump concedes.
I'm just like, all this late breaking financial news that the New York Times has been doing around Deutsche Bank and the Trump organization is. It's like you just kind of let it wash over you because again, 200,000+ deaths, and we are in the middle of a pandemic and we're in an electoral season. But like, think about that. How do we have a president who has so much money dangling over him from foreign actors, from China, from Russia? But on top of that, yes, we know that both parties are servants of finance and big banks, but like. Have all presidents been in debt $400 million to one of those banks? Like, is that a little bit of a conflict of interest? And all these norms, back to if there is a landslide man, if this guy leaves, the norms that Democrats went along with because of, oh yeah, that's just being respectable. F that, we need to make those norms laws, impeachable laws, no question impeachable laws. No process, you're out. You can't owe that much money to a bank. You have to divest your holdings. You have to put them in a separate account. Like there is no norm anymore. You make this law.
Right, I agree, hard agree. Because
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, because without these norms, these agreements that make our democracy function and that Donald Trump has exposed our vulnerability around, without them actually becoming law, then we will have someone else come along, and whether it's the next term or 10 terms from now, they'll come along and finally break the system once and for all, because there are just too many things that leaves us vulnerable to the ambitions of a megalomaniac like Donald Trump that could destroy this democracy.
Well, I think where you guys are a little inaccurate is at his during his inauguration and when he was sworn in, he divested. Didn't you see the papers? Didn't you see those plain white papers that were just displayed all over? Didn't you see
just like his healthcare plan, right?
Exactly. Yes. Eric and Don Jr., they took over the business, okay? Yep. They are the ones that are putting in the work in order to make Trump Tower just stay a little afloat. No, I agree with you guys completely. Divesting is important, but also, however you feel about him, one thing Barack Obama said that was totally accurate when he was addressing the crowd in Georgia was, hey, you know what happened when coronavirus was looming? Both of your senators decided to take advantage of you, and they didn't serve you. You know what they did? They served their pockets. They served their stocks. Again, however you may feel about him, he is dead on point with that. And sorry to say dead because of what we're talking about, but he is completely spot on. They should not be, and Dianne Feinstein too, they should not be thinking about these certain issues that are like, yeah, people might die, but I can make 5 million if I know what I know in top secret meetings in order to sell off stocks. It's disgusting.
Yeah. I mean, that's actually enough to. I won't say it on this episode. I'll say it on my show. to drag these people out into the public square because they literally made money while 250,000 people died, and we can't even punish them with our institutional power. There's not enough institutional power to control people who have this kind of power and this kind of money and their ability to watch 250,000 people die while they cash in on it. Like, either we're gonna rectify this system and put in safeties to make sure that this doesn't happen again, or the people are gonna rectify it themselves. It won't last forever.
Right, what terms do you put it in though to make sure people get that? Because again, this has been said, it's not the first time when, when you get a New York Times article that I believe it was New York Times. Apologies if it was Washington Post that had the opportunity to dive into some of his finances and the debt that he owes across the world to so many multiple people, multiple entities. Then when that even only sticks to the people that already know it, there has to be something, because there's always the pushback and the empty words of Trump derangement. You just don't like him because it's Trump derangement, Trump derangement, Trump derangement. It almost has to be like, people are watching this, and Donald Trump is not the only egomaniacal person in the world who wants to use a system that's put in place with a lot of holes in it to benefit themselves. He's not the only one. So many people who we don't know their names right now could be sitting back watching and going, huh, that worked out for him, but I can do it better because he's just a little bit too wild-eyed about it. Let me go ahead and get in there.
Right.
I mean, and I think it's just, today is a perfect day to look at this. Ben and we were talking about this earlier. This is the day to talk about the health of our democracy as a whole. Yes. And the question for Republicans and Democrats, do you believe in it? Do you believe in it? Because Trump supporters, they don't. What they want is for him to have a complete takeover, just to do away with the election, ignore the results, stop counting the ballots, strong arm the state legislatures and all that, and just because democracy, who needs it? And guess what? Actually, some of the founding fathers didn't really believe in democracy. If they were watching now, they'd be like, ooh, this is not what we meant. Why are there women and enslaved? You know what I mean? Voting, like, why is that happening? So, we have to understand this. We have to understand the ways that, what gets me is these grifters, they make money and then they directly reinvest it in our political system itself to put their thumb on the scale, to use their dark money to get people like Amy Coney Barrett onto the Supreme Court. So it is a beautiful moment to say vote, and man, we need to make this democracy better.
Jayar, you said something that I wanted to echo. You said there's always a group of people who are going to say the Trump derangement syndrome, the Trump derangement syndrome. The only people that I think that are actually worse than the politicians who do these things are the people who are intentionally being paid to create a false equivalence and to try to neutralize it and to try to neutralize any criticisms of it, because they are actually paving the way for an even worse Donald Trump by trying to make it seem that our criticisms of Donald Trump is irrational when this man has presided over the deaths of 250,000 people. I'm sorry, if that's Trump derangement syndrome, then give it to me.
I mean,
I think one quick thing that Francesca said, everything we said is accurate, but one thing she said that still is lingering with me is when you get a more professional politician, a more smooth talking politician to then reiterate the practices that Donald Trump has laid, that is when we are in complete dangerous territory, because it's not just going to be so out in the open. There's going to require, and this sucks to say, but like our media system is not only somewhat corrupt because of the business practices, but also it's decaying because so many companies have had to go under. So journalism is at risk. Also, when he's at war with journalists. So it's going to require that much more legwork once you have a more smooth talking politician who's also just as evil as him when they take over.
They've always been that way.
When the Republican Party is just the Republican Party again, just baseline evil rather than like, incredibly evil, just like off evil record. I mean, we go back to George W. Bush. And this is the thing with the media, Ricky, you're totally right. Like at every point in turn, the media was like, just give us one thing. Just do this one thing with us. Maggie Haberman was like, I will go to Trump Tower. I'm gonna do this interview with you. I will just give us one piece of respectability that we can gnaw on and say that you were presidential and he couldn't. He's too stupid to do that. He didn't know how to play the media, but so many politicians do, and they know how to do it. And then the media just kind of rolls over and is like, oh, both sides, both sides. And their policies are the same. They're just not as gauche about it, as I like to say.
Well, on that bright note, I'm gonna go ahead and set the stage for our regular showtime, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 o'clock Pacific. We're gonna have Cenk and Anna step into in front of the camera and give a little bit of rundown of how we're going leading into the rest of the election night tonight. And of course, our normal hour worth of shows that are gonna make you wanna pull your hair out. Thank you again, Rick, for joining us for this entire hour. Ben Dixon, Francesca Fiorentini. I hope you guys enjoy the night. Of course, go check out Ben on his stream later, on his own broadcast, so we can hear him say the things that he kind of wanted to say here. And go check out Francesca's Zoom, her Zoom shows, because we need a little bit of laughter, even while she's hearing silence.
Yes.
And Rick,
and the Situation Room podcast. I'm going to say what Ben didn't say. Then I'll say it on my podcast. Then Ben's going to be on my podcast on Sunday. So just check that out. Yeah.
Thank you guys for coming. We'll see you guys soon. We're going to be going all night and probably the rest of the week. So I appreciate you guys. We'll talk to you soon. Get ready for Cenk and Anna for the main show right after this.
Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, and I'll see you soon.